Hello everyone, this is Sean Plott, aka Day9, coming at you today with the Hallmarks of Expert Play number 1, winning when you have the advantage. So this entire audio is motivated by a conversation I had recently with a friend of mine who's getting back into StarCraft again, and he's been playing on Icy Cup. And the problem he's been having is that whenever he gets the advantage, he never really knows what to do. And in a lot of games, it's clear to him that he has an advantage, and yet he'll still end up losing. And I think that's an entirely valid question. What do I do once I have an advantage? I find this question interesting because it highlights a big issue in the natural evolution of a player from weak to strong. A lot of players, when they begin and they're sort of low to mid-level players, their entire play revolves around these tactics or plays that are designed to win a game. Not give an advantage, but win outright. So an example of this would be in Terran vs. Zerg. A Terran player does a fast tank push build against an early expanding Zerg. The goal of the tank push is to bust down the sunken colonies, you run in with a bunch of medic marine, and the Zerg is supposed to leave shortly thereafter. However, at some point, such players move on to plays that give an advantage rather than win outright. So for instance, again, let's say that same Terran player all of a sudden now starts early expanding against Zerg players and is working on that first timing push. That is designed to give the Terran player an advantage. That middle push oftentimes doesn't win, but kind of pins the Zerg back to his natural and his expansion as the Zerg makes its way towards Defilers. Now, for a good player, that's exactly what he wants. He loves having the Zerg pinned, and he loves playing off that advantage. But for a player who's been relying so much on things that cause wins, it's a very uncomfortable feeling when you're in an advantageous situation and you don't really know what to do. So the advice I ended up giving to my friend Tristan, and the advice I'm going to give to you now, is a list of 4 ideas that you should always keep in your mind anytime you're in the lead. You can think of them as sort of like a mental checklist to make sure you're not doing anything wrong to lose your advantage. Each of these items is going to focus a lot on the sort of mistakes that players make when they're in the lead and how to avoid them. Number 1, always make sure you have an endgame plan before your game has ever started. I see so many players that have a build that will lead them to some advantage, and then when they get there, they arrive at this advantageous situation, they suddenly have no idea what to do. Their macro gets screwed up, they don't time their expansions or the rest of their attacks correctly, and that's what ends up losing them the game. And the way to avoid this is just have a very general, straightforward sense of what you're going to do in the end game. And I'm not talking about anything specific or anything crazy, just some basic framework that you can always be trying to go for. So let's say you're a Protoss player against a Terran player. An end game plan might be something like, I want 4 bases, 2 Stargates making Arbiters, and 15 gateways. There's nothing too complicated or even very specific about this framework, but again, if Terran comes out with a big push and you kill it, you know what you're going for now. You can maybe take those expansions earlier or add on more gateways and the Arbiter more quickly, but you still have something that you're going for. Your brain will always feel a lot less disorganized if you do this sort of thing like pre-game. Number 2, scout every expansion on the map. I know a lot of players will say things like scouting is very important, and everyone's always aware of that, but it's so key the instant you have an advantage to just take that little extra time to send a probe or a Zergling or some unit just to make sure every single expansion is clear. Because I'm sure everyone has lost countless games where you're totally containing your opponent, you feel like you're about to win, and then you go to the right side of the map and he has the entire main covered with a whole set of like tanks and marines and everything, and it just ruins your day. Number 3, when you have an advantage, don't try to win immediately with a big attack. This idea is sort of rooted in the fundamental theory of a better player. In any game, if you have 2 players, the better player, theoretically, wants the game to continue as long as possible, because the longer a game is, the more decisions both players are faced with, and on average, the better player will make more correct decisions. In other words, if a good player is against a worse player, the good player's lead will naturally extend itself over time. So when you have a big lead, there's no need to try to attack immediately to finish him off. You should focus on just letting the game play out and again, focusing on that end game plan that you have in your mind. You know, in fact, so many games that I watch July play, he'll do this genius build and he'll get in this great situation and then he'll just start attack moving the player's front and he'll end up losing. And it's so frustrating for me to watch because he's clearly just throwing the game away. You don't want to give that extra advantage to your opponent. That said, if it's clear you can win immediately, then yeah, definitely go for it. But there's nothing wrong with letting the game play out and trying to win later and later with like hive tech units or arbiters or, you know, the huge Max Terran army. That's all fine. Always feel free to let the game play out. Number 4, make sure that you're sealed up tight against harassment, and also don't try too hard to harass your opponent either. This idea's underlying logic is similar to that of the previous idea, in that when your opponent is at a disadvantage, he needs to try to take big risks to pull himself back in the game. And a lot of those big risks involve making a costly dropship or shuttle to try to do some major damage to you. So naturally, I should make sure that they can't kill me in any way. But the second half of that, don't get too excited about harassing yourself, seems a little counterintuitive to a lot of players. Because a lot of players will say, hey, I have this big advantage. Why shouldn't I use this as a good opportunity to do some in-your-face harassment? Again, harassment is pretty risky if you're not careful. I mean, for example, a shuttle that has a Dark Templar and 2 High Templar in it, if that dies somehow, that's a pretty big loss for the Protoss player. That said, harassment is good because it helps give you an advantage. But think again, if I'm already in a position where I have an advantage, I don't necessarily have to get an even bigger advantage. So for example, if I'm a Zerg player and I've contained a Terran player with a bunch of lurkers, that Terran player doesn't have vessels yet, so I'm sitting, happily outside his base. That doesn't mean I need to get a bunch of lurkers and do drops in his main to try to kill off SCVs. I'm already in a good position to get defilers and push right into his main. And if I did try to be really aggressive with harassing and dropping with lurkers, I run the risk of losing too many lurkers, and then the contain at the front of his base becomes very weak, and I end up tossing my advantage away. With these 4 ideas enumerated, I want to give a sort of big concrete example that synthesizes everything together, so it's pretty clear how this entire checklist applies in a concrete situation. Suppose I'm playing a Zerg vs Terran on Tau Cross. I open up with a 3-hatch Lurker Ling build. That is, I don't do the standard Mutalisk sort of opening. And then let's say the Terran player tries to hold my front with a bunch of Medic Marine and stop my Lurkers, but I'm able to surround that Medic Marine group, kill it, and now I can park all my Lurkers right outside the front of his base. At this point, I have an advantage. First of all, I've killed off his first pack of Medic Marines, so we know his Medic Marine numbers are going to be a lot lower. Second of all, I've contained him with lurkers, so I don't need to worry about a whole bunch of Marines running around the map. As a result, I can feel free to make a lot more drones and expand to the places I want to expand to, and I know that this Terran player won't be able to bust out until he gets science vessels. Third, because I have him contained, I know that the Terran player is going to have real trouble scouting me and knowing what's up. So right now, I am in a good position. Terran is playing blind, and I have map control. Step 1. What's my endgame plan? Well, first, I want to take a 3rd gas expansion, get another hatch, make sure I have 2 evolution chambers upgrading, and get a defiler mound. That's the first sort of component to my endgame. I'm not going to do anything crazy like expand 3 times or anything because I have him contained now. I'm just going to do exactly what I was going to do before, except now I know that I have the opportunity to maybe make a few extra drones there when I wouldn't have been able to before. Later on down the line, I will take more expansions and tech towards Ultralisks, but for now my game plan is to make sure I get that defiler mound, those hatcheries, and that upgrade, or those upgrades running. Step 2, scouting. I take one of the Zerglings, sometimes 2, and I just briefly run around the whole map, both to make sure that there aren't any expansions and also to make sure he's not doing anything dumb, like making 4 barracks in the corner of the map so he can sneak stuff around. That stuff can be really annoying. So this is just to make sure that the map control I think that I have actually is there. Step 3, I'm not going to attack. A lot of times Terran players will make 3 or 4 bunkers when they lose their first Medic Marine group, just to make sure that you can't bust in and kill them with a bunch of Lurker Ling. The best part is, the Terran player does have to make a lot of bunkers and get ready for this attack, because if he doesn't, he runs the risk of losing. However, though he's built all those things, you don't necessarily have to attack at all. So essentially, not only did the Terran player lose his first Medic Marine group, but now he's forced to make buildings he doesn't want to make. Buildings that you're not even going to attack at any point. So again, we're not going to attack and throw our game away. Step 4, harassment. I immediately surround his base with overlords and make sure I have a bunch of Scourge patrolling to make sure no dropships end up sneaking out. And I also am not going to go for drop and do any harassment myself. As I said earlier, it's inconsistent for me with this advantage to risk losing lurkers in a harassment attempt that will both delay my endgame and weaken my contain. So yeah, from Terran's point of view, he pretty much has to play a straight up game against me. He can't do any weird dropship harass, he can't sneak Medic Marine around and delay my expansion. He can't sneak an expansion anywhere else. He has to play straight to kill those lurkers at the front of my base and then deal with whatever endgame army I have. I'm in a great situation because I exploited the advantage that I gained early. I now am in the position where I can get defilers and push into his base to win. I can get a whole bunch of ultralisks and just attack move to win. It's very clear now what I'm doing with my advantage to sort of seal the deal in the game. To recap, if you have an advantage, you should first always make sure that you're following your end game plan, which is a plan that you devised before the game happened. Number 2, make sure you're scouting every expansion on the map to make sure there's no hidden stuff that can have the game slip out from under you. Number 3, don't get overexcited and attack a whole bunch, or even get overexcited and expand a whole bunch. Just continue to play the game out. And number 4, make sure that you don't get harassed and don't do any sort of harassment that would potentially cost you your endgame plan. So yeah, I hope that this was a useful exercise for some of you who are trying to move more towards the advantage type play and away from the 1-2-3 punch win type play. So yeah, good luck everyone. Cheers.